your churches, for God's sake. Quit fighting for social justice. Quit saving the bloody planet. Attend to some souls. That's what you're supposed to do. That's your holy duty. Do it now.
Serve one. Yeah. Aliens, baby. We don't belong here. Yo. What's up, everybody? It's your boy Kwam Teasy with the House of Truth, brought to you by the Christocrats. Once again, we are here giving you the information that you need to help you represent the kingdom and everything from politics to pop culture and everything in between. And so before we get started though, I want you to go ahead and do me a huge favor. Hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, share this video, and check out all our other videos and everything else we got going on the channel, because we are building a community for you and I to really be able to make an impact for the kingdom and glorify God in so doing. Today, I want to talk briefly about something that is really cool that has happened. Is Jordan Peterson has put out an exhortation to the church. Jordan Peterson himself, if you don't know who he is, he's a clinical psychologist who has come to come to prominence and popularity because he stood up against the monolith that tells everyone how they have to speak in using pronouns and all of that, and forcing you to acquiesce to their way. And he has stood up against that, and in doing so, it has exposed all of his other teachings and his books, and brought him to prominence, mainly in the conservative side. And this man, what he does is he calls young men and people in general up higher, to the higher self, to dealing with and being able to take on as much load as they can in the world in order to make the world better. He is not part of the group of people that coddle and pet and say that you are so super special. He is part of a group, a dying breed that tells people that they have more to do, that they can take more on, that they have a responsibility to their society and to themselves and to others around them. And it has really solidified in talking to young men. It has really, it's really attracted young men to him, because he is saying things in sort of a fatherly, drill sergeant kind of way that most young men nowadays are not used to hearing, not used to seeing. They're used to being not only coddled when they're young, but now when they get a little bit older and their masculinity is starting to try to show up, now society is telling them that they are worthless and that masculinity is wrong and it's toxic. Just being masculine at all is being toxic, and we are losing a generation of young men. What is happening is they are turning away from making families, they're turning away from society, being engaged in society. You see it in every metrics that we can see. They're turning away from doing the brave things. They're turning away from, just being men in general. Can you imagine if the young men of today were called on to do what the young men in the 40s had to do, storming the beaches of Normandy, knowing that they're more than likely going to die? If we had to rely on them to do that today, who knows where we would be? We probably would be all speaking German. So Jordan Peterson is for all intents and purposes, for all we know, is a secular person dealing with these issues. Now, on the other hand, too, another thing that he deals with is the archetypes in the Bible as a psychological framework for how we should live our lives. And he is very favorable, very reverent towards the Bible and the stories. Now, to make a long story short, there has always been a thing about Jordan Peterson from Christians, whether or not he's actually a Christian. Now, his daughter is a professed, outspoken believer. But Jordan has been very coy about that over the years. Although we have seen, if you follow him, we have seen some of his lectures and some of his interviews where he is inching more and more towards actually making a confession for Jesus Christ, because he talks about how it is true. And then when he's asked the question, is he a believer, he will tell you that he lives as if everything is true, and he'll leave it at that. Kind of a non-answer, but an answer nonetheless. So recently, a couple of weeks ago, Jordan Peterson put out a video that was exhorting the church to reach out to young men. And I listened to it, and I encourage you to go ahead and listen to it. It's about 10 minutes long, so it's not long. And he talks about, he lays out the problem. He lays out why, what the problem is with young men and how society has treated young men and the effects of it. And he lays that out very skillfully and truthfully. And then he lays down an accusation that is very true. We have to admit it. He lays down the accusation that the church has dropped, the Christian church has dropped the ball on bringing young men in. And being someone that has been in church all my adult life, I can attest to that. Yes, we have had Promise Keepers over the past, and we have men's conferences and men's groups and things of that nature. But in general, and especially over the last 20 years, 30 years, the church has been feminized. And we have swung the pendulum all the way to the wrong side. And so now, generally, men do not feel as if the church has the answers to what the world is saying against them. Now, that's not true. The truth is that the Church of Jesus Christ, the Christian church, has the answers. You can come to the church and become a part of the body of Christ and keep your masculinity. God gave that to you as a man in order for him to wrought out his will on the earth through you, through your personality, and through what he's put you in. And to combine that with womanhood and women to really push the ball forward. The way that God designed it is so perfect. But what the world tells you and tells young men is that you and what you bring to the table naturally is toxic and therefore needs to be shut down and ignored. And Jordan Peterson is saying, no, it's the exact opposite. We need you. We need you, young men. And he is exhorting the church to go out and actively promote the idea that you as a young man in your masculinity and what you have to offer is welcome here. And here in the church, we will build you up into the man that you are called to be. So he uses some biblical archetypal, if that's even a word, stories that are in there. Now, I'm going to give you a little bit of background on why this is pertinent, because a lot of criticism has come to Jordan Peterson on this video, basically saying that he's not a Christian, so who is he basically to say what we should and shouldn't be doing? And some have said, well, we are doing this, and we are advertising and going towards young men. I beg to differ. You don't see a lot of advertisements and the graphics and the marketing to specifically target young men. It targets families, and it targets women, and it targets children. And it leaves the young men out of the picture. They're just kind of an afterthought. But yet, at the same time, a young man is derided for being a young man. So he uses these biblical archetypes to say that, as a young man, we need as a church to remind young men that you have a purpose, that you have an ark to build, a woman to find, Adam finding Eve, a family to create, an ark to build, a ladder to create to heaven. All those are alluding to something. All those little things that he said allude to something that the church can only provide to a young man. And so my opinion is that this is a phenomenal call to action for the churches. And another prominent man that's on here on YouTube said the same thing. They said that, why is it that it takes someone who most deem as not a believer to say some of the things that we need to say? He goes on to tell the church to stop trying to be socially, cure the social ills and be socially acceptable and do the hard work of raising up young men. Because if you raise up young men to be men of God, literally, then it bolsters and uplifts all of society. Now, he does say that the purpose of the church is to do that. I don't agree with that. I don't think that the full purpose of the church is to do that. The full purpose of the church is to win souls and make disciples and glorify God and get us ready for the second coming and represent the Lord on earth. However, the nuts and bolts of doing that are for sure including reaching out to men. And I think that some of the criticism of this video that Jordan Peterson put out by Christians is missing the point. They are, criticizing him for not saying that it's the gospel, but that's not what Jordan Peterson was talking about. What he was talking about, the subject of the video was to rescue young men, to let them know we are here. The church is here. He said, put up a big banner and say, you are welcome here. And then let them know how to come and how to dress. And one main thing he said that's really important, he said, require more of them, not less. Require more of them than they've ever been required. What more can you require of a person than to lay down their life? Because when you become a believer, that is the job. Becoming a believer means you lay down your life. So I think that this is a phenomenal video. I suggest you go check it out. And one other point I wanted to make is that Jordan Peterson, towards the end, started using, if you know him, if you listen to him, Jordan Peterson picks his words very carefully. He doesn't just shoot off at the mouth and say whatever. He picks them very, very carefully. And at the end of the video, towards the end of the video, he began referring to the church as we and us, including himself in that number. Like many times. He does it a bunch of times at the end. That's indicative of something to me. Maybe he is beginning to think of himself, or maybe he does think of himself as part of the church. And it's a possibility that he doesn't want to come out and say it because he doesn't want to be harangued into a box by the church, the body, which we often do. I don't know. That might be the case. But there are several videos out there that show that Jordan Peterson is definitely wrestling with, or have wrestled with, his own faith in Jesus, and understands that there's no way historically that it could be a lie. And so what does that mean? And in other videos, he says that's a scary prospect because it means he has to surrender his life. So all that being said, I believe it's very true. We need to reach out to young men and men in general, not just young men, but men in general, and say, hey, listen, the church is for you. It's not just for your wife or your kids, and you come along and you get maybe a touch here and there. No, it's for you to be there and lead them to the church and be a leader in the church so that people can feel like there is a shelter there. The psychological ramifications of what the world is doing to men is going to have long-term effects that the church has the ability to step in and win souls and be Jesus to these men so that they can be Jesus to the world around them. That's all I got. I recommend that you go ahead and check out that video, listen to it. Tell me what you think about Jordan Peterson in general. What do you think about what he said to the church? What can we do that we're not doing now to reach these young men? I'm not talking about after they've come to church and cleaning them up and filling them up and the challenges of that entails. He was talking about just attracting them in the first place, getting them in the door in the first place. And we are not doing that, and we could do a better job at that. And here at the Christocrats, we are actually working on doing some things to do that for young men and men in general, so that we can make ourselves better men, better representatives of the gospel, so that we can help represent Jesus and glorify him and save the world. Once again, if you like what you heard, and you want to hear more, you want to see more, go ahead and click the like button. If you're watching on YouTube, go ahead and share this worldwide if you can. Go to the website, thechristocrats.org. Drop us your email address. We promise we won't spam email you, but you want to join the movement that is boldly standing for the kingdom in everything from pop culture to politics, and we are going to make a difference for the kingdom until he comes. All right, so y'all be easy. Remember, Hebrews 10:39 says we are not of those that shrink back, and we ain't shrinking back for nothing. Y'all be easy. I'm out.
Serve one. Yeah. Aliens, baby. We don't belong here.